On May 28, 2024, a notice of this meeting was transmitted to the Board of Education, and a copy of the notice was posted at the Education Center bulletin board. Copies were also transmitted to the Millburn Short Hills Item, the Star Ledger, the Millburn Short Hills Independent Press, Tap Into Millburn Short Hills, the Township Clerk, and members of the Township Committee, presidents of the PTO and civic associations, and the Public Library. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First, we have the installation of new board members. Ms. Schneidel will administer the oath of office to Mr. Farashuden.
If you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Asaf Farashuden,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
and to the governments established in the United States and this state,
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
under the authority of the people, so help me God.
I state your name.
I, Asaf Farashuden,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
that I possess the qualifications prescribed by law
for the office of a member of Board of Education,
for the office of member of a Board of Education.
am not disqualified as a voter
I am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
pursuant to RS 19:4-1,
and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board
and that I am not disqualified from membership on the board
due to a conviction of a crime or offense
due to conviction of a crime or offense
listed in NJS 18A:12-1,
listed in NJS 18A:12-1,
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
and that I will faithfully, impartially, and justly perform
all duties of that office
all duties of that office
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
according to the best of my ability, so help me God.
Congratulations. Just 1 minute. Thank you. And just a presentation from the county recognizing your election to the board.
Okay, thank you.
And I don't know if anyone wants to take a photo opportunity. Okay,
You
we
did.
got the photo.
Okay, all right, we're good, thank you.
Congratulations.
All right, minutes. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting and the closed session meetings of December 16th? Mr. Lawrence, second. Ms. Shivani, any comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Oh, abstention? Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes of the reorganization meeting of January 2nd? Ms. Longley Richards, second. Mr. Lawrence? Any comments? All in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? 2. All right, moving on to the main agenda, we have a presentation on ethics. I'll turn it over to Dr. Diskin to get it started.
All right, we welcome here tonight Jean Cleary from New Jersey School Boards to give the ethics training for all of our board members and our new board members alike. So this is a yearly presentation, and so we welcome and thank Jean for coming tonight.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with everyone. This presentation will be made available tomorrow so that you will have access to it and can use all the hyperlinks to reach all of the background information. Is it okay? We're good? Okay. Okay, so I need to just start off by saying that this is meant to be for training purposes only. I do not offer legal advice, nor does New Jersey School Boards. So if you have any questions about the ethics presentation or specific questions, you should really direct them to your board attorney, who can best provide that support to you. So the School Ethics Act recognizes the importance and that it's essential that the conduct of members of local boards of education and the lead administrators hold the respect and the confidence of the people of the community. And to do this, you must avoid conduct which is in violation of the public trust or which creates a justifiable impression that their trust is being violated. And that's something that we need to see. It's not only action, but it's the impression that you can leave people with. So the legislative intent of the act is to ensure and preserve the public confidence in the integrity of school officials. And as board members, you are seen as school officials, and now you need to hold yourself accountable and compliant with the rules under the School Ethics Act. So to guide your conduct, school officials, it's recognized, need to have the benefit of some specific standards and an understanding of a disciplinary mechanism to ensure that there's a uniform maintenance of those standards, so everyone is following the same rules. These are considered to be a minimal set of ethical standards. As you become more experienced as board members and undergo more training, we would expect that you would hold yourself to even higher personal standards. So there are provisions of the Act that are meant to hold board members and lead administrators accountable. All four of these that are here pertain to board members, the Code of Ethics and mandatory training, and for lead administrators as well, to be in compliance with prohibited acts and to file annual disclosure statements. And the purpose of this, again, is to ensure the public's confidence in school officials so that you can stay focused on the important work of serving the students of your district. So who enforces the act? The School Ethics Commission is the commission that is tasked with that. It's composed of 9 members that are appointed by the governor. No more than 5 can be from one party. And it's important to understand the composition of this commission because they are the ones that set the rules for us to review tonight and also will decide if there's been a violation. So understanding the composition of the commission is important. There are 5 non-school officials. There are 2 seats for school board members and 2 seats for school administrators. So a total of 9. Currently, the 2 school board member positions are open as well as 1 of the administrator positions, leaving a commission operating with just 6 at the moment. Your disclosure statements that you're required to follow for new school officials, those that have newly come on the board, or any administrators required to file them before when they start, have to complete the disclosure statements, both financial and relative personal ones, within the first 30 days of either coming onto the board or starting work in the district. Every year after, you have until April 30th to file them. Your BA might be kind enough to send out reminders at times, but I would just caution you that it is your individual responsibility to make sure that you can meet the deadline to file these and that penalties can be imposed for failure to file in a timely fashion. So board members are required to take mandatory training each year of service. In the first year, you have to complete this training in the first 90 days. It's called Governance 1 and covers a new board orientation, basic knowledge and skills, discussion of NJQSAC, the HIB reporting, the superintendent's evaluation, understanding the Open Public Meeting Act and implications, and of course the Code of Ethics, which we're going to take tonight. For your new board member who was just sworn in and any other new members, you're going to sit through this tonight, and unfortunately, if you haven't already taken Gov 1, go through it again. But that's just for your information, not to skip it. By the end of year 2, all board members are required to take Governance 2 for a deeper look at finance and policy. By the end of year 3, Governance 3 covers student achievement and labor. And then after that, any year that you are reappointed or reelected, each year you have to take Gov 4 to cover the most recent legal updates that will guide you in your decision making. So New Jersey School Boards is recognized as the association that provides this mandatory training to you. We do not impose penalties, but we are required to report out of compliance to the School Ethics Commission, who then can have a penalty for you if you're not in compliance. If you visit the New Jersey School website, you'll see that there are multiple ways you can take this training, the mandatory training, in person, live virtual, or self-paced online. You should look at the dates and the method that you want to take it in, and the BA knows, so that she has to be the one that's registering you for mandatory training. So another thing that the School Ethics Commission does is provide advisory opinions. Any school official, board member, administrator, or the attorney on your behalf can ask an advisory opinion to get guidance on some action that you may take in the future if you have concerns that it might actually create a violation and you're trying to avoid that. So with 6 members of the School Ethics Commission in agreement, which is all of them right now, if they feel that the question that's been asked and the guidance they're providing to you is valuable to other board members and districts across the state, they can vote to make that public, which is how we have a library of advisory opinions that we can review and help guide us. Of course, if they do that, personal identifying information, the district name, as well as your name for asking, are all retracted. So, recognizing that the School Ethics Commission is the state administrative agency that's responsible for adjudicating violations, it's determined that if you make a request for an advisory opinion and they give that guidance to you, you are expected to follow that guidance. And it is similar to a police officer who informs you that some behavior you may take might lead to arrest. You're free not to take the advice, but it's probably not going to go in the way that you had hoped. So you are to follow the advice that's provided once you receive that guidance. On the bottom here is the link to the advisory opinions, and again, these hyperlinks will work for you. And it is really a good practice to just go in and look at them because there's information there for similar things that you may come up against as a board member, and you'll have some guidance there already for you. Okay, on the next few slides, there are advisory opinions, and because you will have access to all of this, we're not going to go through all of them. I would like to just point out that on the left, you have the question that was posed, can a board member? And on the right, the summary that the School Ethics Commission has provided as their response. But to get a more accurate understanding of all of the factors involved in that case, you really want to click on the hyperlink in the corner. Here we see it says A14-24, A for advisory opinion, case 14, and 24 is the year. So just on this slide, if we take a look at the one on the bottom, there was a question posed by a board member asking if they own an ice cream shop, could participate in fundraising requests to support the PTO and clubs through hosting events and advertising. So being a member of the board, they of course want to support in any way they can. They had this business, and it was determined that providing services to the PTO or district families, district organizations, would violate the act. And it doesn't really go into it in the summary here, but there is concerns that are outlined for benefits that the board member may have. Their business might be looked upon more favorably than another business in the community, so it would violate the act. Separately, they asked if it was a violation if they were to buy an ad for probably the theater handbook, asking local businesses to support. And I'm not moving, so. And it was determined that purchasing an ad in the for that purpose was not a violation, because that was something open to all businesses in the community, and everybody would be treated fairly and the same, and there would be no special benefit to the board member. On the next slides, if we look here at the second one down, A0524, the question was, can a board member who received and used an endorsement from the local union in their campaign materials participate in policy matters relevant to union members? And in this specific case, they said that considering the type and level of union support provided and absent any financial contribution, it's not a per se conflict. But that member did know that they should not participate in negotiations with that unit that were going to happen in that year that they had been elected. So it's important information to understand. So who can file an ethics complaint if they believe that these acts, have been in violation? Any person in the community may file it. It has to be made and filed within a 180-day window of the alleged occurrence. That person would have to identify the section or sections of the act that they believe were violated, and they'd have to provide the factual evidence to support that for the School Ethics Commission to review that case and have all of the information in front of them. We're going to look at factual evidence on a future slide. Now, if they look at it and determine that, yes, in fact, it was a violation, the SEC Commission recommends to the commissioner one of the following 4 penalties. The first one is a reprimand, which is a rebuke by the commissioner that the conduct did in fact violate the standards, but it doesn't lead to any formal resolution. The next one, that's a bit more serious, is censure, and it's a formal disapproval by the commissioner, and it's publicized by the adoption of a resolution. So it's become now more public, and people are aware that there's been a violation. The third is a suspension, where the individual can be barred from engaging in any activity or matter for some period of time, 30, 60, 90 days or longer. And finally, for egregious acts, there can be immediate removal from the board or from employment. So on the next slides, we're going to look A through J, which constitute all of the sections of the Code of Ethics. On the bottom is the section that says standards, is actually the factual evidence that would need to be applied if a violation was being filed. It's helpful for all of you to independently read these and be comfortable and familiar with it, because they can also bring some clarity to how you can avoid any kind of violation. So the first one is that you'll uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools, and that desired changes will only be brought about through legal and ethical procedures. That's very similar to the oath we heard tonight, and is the expectation of what you are serving for. In B, it mentions that you will make your decisions in terms of the educational welfare of children. That has to be first and foremost what you are looking to do in your service, and maintain schools that meet individual needs of all students, regardless of their ability, race, creed, sex, or social standing. So many reasons drive people to sit on a board of education, and we have to remember that we are entitled to our personal viewpoints and focus, but as a serving school official, you have to ensure that you're looking out for the interests of all students regardless, and that's who you have to be first and foremost attending to. C actually goes to speaking to the roles and responsibilities of board members, that you will confine your board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal, and will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. So that really sums up the role and responsibility of board members. It's policy making, your policies that you set guide the district forward, and your planning, the things that you work on together with administration, or how you're going to move forward, and the things that the community values. and your appraisal of the how things are they getting accomplished? Are we meeting our goals? As well as the appraisal for the evaluation of the superintendent. D goes further to just remind you that you are agreeing that you will not try to carry out the administration of the schools, but that along with your fellow board members, see that they are well run. So an important point here is that the board has power that was granted from the Constitution through the legislature to the Department of Education to the board. No individual member of a board has any authority outside of that which the community has. You are only empowered as a board at a legally advertised meeting with a quorum of your board present. So it's important to always know that you're supposed to be working with your board members and staying focused on the role, which is policy planning and appraisal, and not administering the schools. E points out that you'll recognize the authority rests with the Board of Education and not make any personal promises or take any private action that may compromise the board. That there was a case where a board member had a construction company and there were projects that were happening in that district. And with good intent was stopping off every day to the school project and meeting up with the project manager and just checking on how things were coming along. And that was found to be a violation. That's the role of an administrative person. It's not the role of an individual board member to do. And it can compromise the working of the board because the power lies with the board as an entity. F is, pardon me. F is I will refuse to surrender my independent judgment to special interests or partisan political groups or use the schools for personal gain or for the gain of friends. G is I will hold confidential all matters pertaining to the schools which, if disclosed, would needlessly injure individuals or the schools. In all other matters, I'll provide accurate information and in concert with my fellow board members, interpret for the staff the aspirations of the community for its schools. So we just want to focus on here that it's important to be transparent, to allow through Open Public Meetings Act for members of the community to be aware of what's happening in the district, except for those times when you are speaking in executive session for those topics that are permitted to be covered in executive session and where release of confidential information could harm someone. So if you have any questions about anything to do with that, like any of these, please speak to your board attorney. H is that I will vote to appoint the best qualified personnel available after consideration of the recommendation of the Chief Administrative Officer. So your superintendent is recognized as being both your educational and administrative leader in charge and makes a recommendation from her experience for you of who is the best fit for open positions. And it's the board's responsibility to affirm that and not to try to select who fills that role. Based on what your local board policies might be, there might be some provisions that allow you to see resumes for a final candidate, something similar. But again, you look at your board policies, but at no point step over the line of trying to suggest someone else to hire. So the code of ethics continued here is with I, that you'll support and protect school personnel in the proper performance of their duties. In the last couple of years, we've had some challenging situations with curriculum that was brought into schools and a lot of feelings around those things, and we are all entitled to our feelings. But it's important as school officials that you take seriously supporting the staff in the proper performance of their duties. When they have to teach something that's in the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, that's required. You are supposed to uphold all of the directions from the state, right? And finally, moving on to J, I will refer all complaints to the Chief Administrative Officer and will act on the complaints at public meetings only after the failure of an administrative solution. So it's important to understand this really kind of refers to using properly your chain of command, which when you are approached by someone looking for support on an issue that they have, the proper thing, because you can't act independently, you must act as a full board, is to refer that person back to closest to the issue that's happening. So if it's something in a classroom, it's the classroom teacher or the principal going up the chain. The reason that's important is it's good practice that allows for an administrative solution for that case as well as any similar cases to be found, and it's an efficient way to meet the needs of that person. But there are times when an administrative solution, even going up to the superintendent's office, may not be something that that person feels is the final solution. Only at that time would it be requested to come before the board at a public board meeting, and you would be acting as a board and not as an individual. So some cases related specifically to the Code of Ethics. We have here C4523, just to point out that's a hyperlink, of course, that the year is 23. On the one on the bottom, it's 22. We know that cases at times take a length of time to be reconciled. In red, you see that that's the penalty that was assigned to the particular case. Just to the left of the red, you'll see in parentheses which part of the code has been identified as being violated. So if we look at the one on the bottom, a member was involved in ongoing efforts to reverse an HIB and code of conduct violation for their child. They made repeated direct contact with the superintendent, with the board as a whole, with individual board members, and asked for the board attorney's input. The action was unrelated to the role of a board member, and it was actually seen as trying to reverse a directive of administration, and it was found to be a violation. It also reflects the fact that other members of the public wouldn't have access to your board attorney, so there was a benefit that was abused there, and this led to a reprimand. I will say that when you see the violation, you'll have a better understanding if you click on the hyperlink, because there might be mitigating facts or whatever the case details. These cases are all found based on the specifics that are involved in that particular case. We can go on to look, I'm sorry, C7823 is a board member with over 15 years of experience, was found to have taken inappropriate action beyond the role of a board member. They were found to have usurped the authority of the superintendent, who's responsible for making disciplinary recommendations. They didn't agree with the recommendation. The board member took it upon themselves to go to that employee's home, pick up a letter, present it on behalf of the employee, directed the BA not to give a copy of the letter to the superintendent, and then instead of recusing herself from the matter, continued the conversation in support of that employee and advocated on behalf of them. So it was found to be, it's listed as a recommended suspension, again, because the School Ethics Commission makes the recommendation, and it's the commissioner that actually has to just act finally. So it's in the process of that, but it's a 60-day recommended suspension. Okay. So I mentioned recusal. It's important to understand the difference between recusal and abstention. Recusal is the way that you formally disqualify and remove yourself from participating in any discussion or voting when you have a conflict. It's the way you formally memorialize the fact that you recognize the conflict, that you are not participating, becomes part of the record, and it's a way to allow the community to be aware that you're doing that, so that we can, again, maintain the public trust that you're taking the proper action when it's needed. The way it's different from abstention is abstention doesn't really hold the same weight. While we try to all avoid it, there are times when you may need to abstain from a vote because you may have missed prior discussions or you weren't prepared for some reason and you may not feel that it's right for you to vote and the vote is happening that night. You can abstain. But the only way to formally recognize that you are saying that you have a conflict and are aware and taking the proper action is by recusing yourself. And your board counsel can weigh in on how that recusal may affect both the quorum and the recording of the votes. So moving on to prohibited acts. This is only an excerpt. The hyperlink is there, and I would suggest that you do take a look at it. But speaking about recusing yourself, when you would use recusal, if there's a benefit to you as a school official or your immediate family, in the following ways: a business interest or professional activity that may be in conflict with your role as a board member, the use of a position to secure unwarranted privileges, advantages, or employment. I would point out that you may not have an intention to do that, right? But if the result is that you do actually receive some type of benefit, that alone would lead to a reason to recuse yourself. Financial involvement that may impair your objectivity, service or employment that may prejudice your independent judgment, if you're related to another party who has business before the board, say. If there's a gift or a favor, it would likely be seen with an intent to influence. That would be a reason to recuse yourself, or any financial gain. Another thing just to consider is that you can never represent any other person or party other than the board in matters that come before the board. And if you're not getting any kind of gain that isn't something everyone else is getting, then you likely don't have a conflict. So when we use the term benefit, that you're receiving a benefit, there's actually a definition that the Ethics Commission uses for a benefit. And they see it as a direct or indirect advantage, profit, privilege, or gain, whether personal, financial, or otherwise. And I would say that by saying otherwise, what that's telling you is that they are reserving judgment so that they can look at the specifics of a case that comes before them to see if the impact of what's happening in that case would in fact lead to breaking of public trust. So the determinative factor is not your perception, but rather the perception of the public. If they believe that they are that you're not able to be objective and their trust is being broken. The case that's on the bottom here was an acting superintendent's son was appearing on the list for substitutes. There were 160 names on the list for substitutes, and he was one of the names. When it was pointed out, it was in fact found to be a violation because it was a family member who would have a financial benefit by being employed by the district if they were used as a substitute, and it did lead to a reprimand. So we have relationship definitions that are pretty straightforward, but what I would say is that although the term relative doesn't actually appear in prohibited acts or code of ethics specifically, a relative can in fact create a conflict. And anyone who's not listed on that list may also be considered an other if a conflict exists. If it still is something that would leave the public with the perception that, you know, there is a conflict there, then that is really going to be case specific. So if you have questions, please ask before. When we look at hiring and personnel, it's important to know under ethics that you may not hire the relative of a board member or the chief school administrator. If your relative already is in the district when you arrive, an administrator may not exercise direct or indirect authority over their relative, and that is going to be a challenge on day-to-day operations. A board member may not take part in employment matters concerning the superintendent or supervisors that are in the chain of command between their relative and the superintendent. And a board member may not take part in the search, selection, or vote to hire a new superintendent or any evaluations afterwards or contract discussions. When we look at collective bargaining and the role you may play in collective bargaining, this is meant for just to sum up some things, but you should really be careful and ask board attorney if any of these you're concerned apply to you. It lists on the left your relationship to the board member, whether they work in district or belong to the statewide public teachers union, and allows you to know whether or not you may participate in negotiations or if you are in fact conflicted. And even if you are conflicted, if you are able to, at the end, ratify the contract. So, campaigns and collective bargaining. Board members who receive union endorsements can be seen as being conflicted from collective bargaining if the negotiations begin within 1 year. So it's not per se a problem if a union endorses you, but you should not participate in negotiations within that year. And on the bottom, it's just pointing out that whether it's your local, state, or national union that's supporting you, of course, if there's no financial gain to you, that of course would pose its own challenges. So, impact on committee assignments when you have a relative who works in the district. On the top, we have an advisory opinion that was given to a board president who had a child working in the district as an instructional assistant. Normally, we know that the president normally chooses sets who belongs to what committee and directs who the chair of the committee is going to be, and then attends those committee meetings as long as there's not a quorum. However, because they had a child who was employed by the district, they could not do any of those normal activities, but they also could not participate in anything related to any discussions around personnel negotiations, instructional, and finance committees. So we can see the impact that it would have on actually being able to participate as a full member of the board. Likewise, a person who has a spouse working in the technology department. And on the bottom, there is a case that just came out about a board member's domestic partner is a transportation specialist. And the board member was told that it would not be prudent for them to serve on the transportation committee. That case is a little interesting when you read through it because there were some questions about whether they were actually sharing the same home at the time. So, if a penalty is assessed, there have been times when people look to use the advice of counsel defense for penalties. The advice of counsel doesn't remove the penalty, but it can act to mitigate the penalty. But to do that, 4 things have to be, these prerequisite factors have to be in place. The first one is that you asked for the advice prior to taking the act. The second one is that the individual who offered you the advice or approval for that action possess the authority. So your board attorney and not perhaps your attorney that lives down the block from you. All pertinent facts and circumstances had to be fully disclosed, even if they perhaps make you not look great, but that's the truth of the matter. You have to provide all the information so that they can weigh in with all of that information. And the individual, the board member who's asking, complied with all of the advice given. So if 2 things were suggested and you only follow 1, it becomes void. So if all 4 factors are present, you may use the advice of counsel to mitigate perhaps the penalty, but because these are very fact and case specific, you may not get it reduced. So commonly, board members are people that have been interested in the schools and have been volunteering in the past. And often we get questions about, is it appropriate, my volunteer activity? So first, I'd like to point out that the greatest volunteer activity you're doing as board members is what you're doing right now, sitting at the board table. So if you have other prior involvement and you're trying to figure out whether or not you can continue with that other activity, volunteering in the schools, you need to just recognize that the SEC considers the degree of both the involvement and the authority. So the involvement that you'll have with staff and students, your frequency and level of interaction, as well as the authority to give and receive directions and orders with staff and students, or to direct resources and funds. So on the left, we see then under the Code of Ethics, C, which we talked about these earlier, that you'll confine your board action to policymaking, planning, and appraisal. So a volunteer activity that would have you in a heightened involvement in the schools. Sorry, something's coming up on the screen. That would have you in heightened, oh. Need some tech? Oh, it's back, thank you. If you have a high frequency and involvement in the school-sponsored activities with regular contact with students and staff, that would be looked at as acting beyond your duties. You are held, right, to a higher level now that you're not just a private citizen, but on the board and a school official. D is that you will not administer the schools. So if you're giving and receiving directions from staff and becoming directly involved in activities and functions in the schools, especially those that probably should be handled by school personnel, you may be seen easily by the public as administering the schools in some way, and that would be a violation. E points out that you should not take any private action that may compromise the board. So if you have significant involvement that blurs the line between your relationship with school personnel and you start to become more like colleagues, that could present problems with negotiations and voting on contracts and leave the public with the perception that you're not really able to be objective. Okay. Sorry about that. Always good to have a tech gentleman in the room.
Glad to help, glad to help. Not sure why we're not connecting.
Do we need a clicker?
We're gonna move you over there. Sorry about that. I don't know why, but we'll make it happen. Sorry about that.
No, no problem. Thank you for your help. So, just keep it more interesting. I'm just going to move this around. So, volunteering in schools, examples from the SEC that provided advisory opinions. If you have a spouse that works in the district and you're helping out with the theater program and you're there and you're talking about lighting and directing staff and students and constant contact with them, that is probably going to be inherently a violation, right? If you're a leader of a student club and now you sit on the board, your constant interaction with students is going to present a violation. If you are a volunteer football coach for the school's team, based on the level of interaction with both students and staff, again, probably an inherent violation. On the right, we look at things that possibly could be a violation, but not are going to be really driven by the specifics in the case. But, one-time, infrequent, reading across America, being a chaperone. If you're a band parent and you just show up to do labor, right? Load those buses, unload those buses, really important work, but probably not because you have limited interaction with anyone. And this is one that we get kind of frequently is whether or not you can maintain PTA, PTO leadership. You can, but I would get advice, quite honestly, about what activities you do. But if you are doing it from an executive point and not really engaging in the day-to-day, operations or being at the event, but kind of being administratively setting it up and coordinating it, it may be fine. So anytime that you are volunteering in schools, and even if you are going into schools as a parent on a regular basis, you probably should put that on the radar of the superintendent for best practices so that she is aware and understands and everybody's on the same page about why you are present in the schools. And of course, when you are in the schools, you need to really refrain from any discussion of board business, which other people might be trying to get you to talk about, but it's your responsibility to not have that conversation. So we get to social media, and that is something that is not going away. We all use social media, but as a board member, again, you have a heightened responsibility to understand things, so that this is probably one of the biggest areas where we risk losing public trust, right? And that's what the Ethics Commission is really trying to guide us to avoid, so that we maintain that trust with the public, so that all the good work that you're doing can stay laser focused on supporting your students. So when a board member makes a statement, the SEC considers the content, the substance, and the context of the statement. And they decide if there's a nexus between the post that's made and your role on the board. So the examples given here is that a member discussed, without a disclaimer, a policy she moved to abolish. She moved to abolish a policy indicating it was reviewed by the board council, and 4 board members also opposed it. That is clearly board business, and putting it out there is discussing board business in social media and could lead to violations. Another board member just shared a campaign image of 3 candidates that were running for the board, didn't make any comments. It appeared on her social media page, and there really wasn't a nexus between doing anything wrong. She didn't speak for or against any of those board members, just put the picture up there. So when we should really consider limiting what we do on social media, because again, individuals shouldn't be speaking for the board. But if you are posting something, the suggested disclaimer is here, provided by the School Ethics Commission, and they do in fact suggest it be bolded and italicized. It's made up of 2 parts. And the first part is, the following statements are made in my capacity as a private citizen and not in my capacity as a board member. But equally important is the second part. These statements also are not representative of the board or its individual members, and solely represent my own personal opinions. A board member actually did post and just put the first part of that, and it left the public with the understanding that the rest of the board went along with it, because no statement was made to clearly say that they didn't. So questions around disclaimers are, does it automatically protect you? No, but it does help to clarify for the public the capacity that you're speaking in. What could cause you to be in a violation anyway is it's really based on the content of what you say. If you leave the members of the public with the impression that you are speaking in an official capacity on things that are matters before the board, that would make the disclaimer of really no use. You don't have to use a disclaimer. You won't automatically be in a violation. And the other thing is that we get asked, do you have to use that disclaimer? Well, for the reasons just outlined on the previous slide, not using both sections could get you into trouble. And I would just offer that it's being provided to you as guidance by the commission that's going to decide whether or not you're in violation. So it's probably a good idea to use their advice. General guidance is that if you've in the past had a media page in candidacy, which is fine, you aren't held to the same standards that you are now as school officials. So you should immediately stop using that page. It can only cause confusion for the public. They don't always know the rules behind it. It's the obligation of you as school officials to know the rules. We don't want to cause that confusion. Liking something on your personal social media account, especially on things that really aren't before the board, a very low likelihood that that's going to lead anyone to believe that a violation is happening. But a thing to also take note of that's important for board members is even if you don't post, but you're an administrator on a social media page, you can be found in violation for what you allow on that page. Because the feeling is that you're making a choice to allow certain things to appear on a page, so you must in fact agree with it. So it's really something that you need to be concerned about and get advice on for any situation that comes close to that. So we made it through. I really want to thank you all for your service. It's really, I was a board member for 6 years myself, and I can say it's hard work at times, but it's so rewarding to know that you're serving your students. And thank you for putting your skills and your time and effort into this. I have provided each one of you with the code, so you have it for reference, the sign-off sheet that should go back to the BA for file. And there's also a list in there of family relations and that for your reference. And you'll be receiving the presentation tomorrow with the hyperlinks. And my card is there, so if you have any questions or I could be helpful, please feel free to reach out. Thanks so much for your help.
But they may ask you questions. Turn it down now.
Thank you, Ms. Cleary. Do we have any questions from the board members? Thank you again, and I look forward to working with you as our field service representatives, and thank you to the public for bearing with us as we went through that long but very important training for us. Moving on, next item is Board President's Report. I'd like to just make a few high-level comments this time before jumping into more detailed business and future sessions. First, I'd certainly like to thank the board for entrusting me with the position as president for the upcoming year. For me, it's all about the students. I plan to leverage this position to deliver the best possible education that we can to them. Second, I would certainly like to thank Mr. Reddy. Mr. Reddy's direct style may have ruffled a few feathers over the past year, but I think we would be hard-pressed to find, in recent memory, anyone who has worked harder or delivered a bigger impact over the past year than Mr. Reddy has. All I can say is thank you. Third, I'd like to talk a little bit about the upcoming year and priorities. I very much view the upcoming year as an extension of the ambitious agenda we embarked upon about a year ago. And to boil it down, I think there are three things that jump out at me that I'd like to focus on. One is certainly access. We made a big push to expand access at the AP level. We saw significant results from that in an increase in eligibility for those classes. We're going to keep working at it, push it down to all levels across all disciplines, and trying to expand access. I think in general, we believe that we would try to push students to try and potentially fall short of those goals, as opposed to telling them that they can't try in the first place. I think we still had some hesitancy about making that leap to the higher level classes when the grading policy wasn't fully in effect. Now that that is taking root, I think we'll see a lot more people make the jump and try those higher level classes, and I would fully encourage that. Two is grading. We took a big step forward in this past year. We knew it was a 80% solution or thereabouts, and that there would be lots of follow-up work to do on that front. I think we are getting a lot of the feedback, analyzing it, asking the important questions of, did the policy go far enough? Did it go too far? What does this mean for the middle school? There's no end to the questions. I think we're trying to collate data as much as possible. We're committed to putting together a package of changes, rolling it out this spring to allow more time for discussions, because that was certainly the feedback we heard last year, that it was pushed out a little quickly. So we're committed to doing that, and I would hope that this becomes a regular process to enhance grading over time to ensure that we remain competitive and it's not just this, big one-off effort with significant changes. Third is personnel. We haven't talked about this much publicly, but we've been doing a lot of work in the background. Thankfully, or the board, we have one employee. Thankfully, we had an opening and we got the opportunity to run a process and select Dr. Diskin. We're very lucky to do that and have that opportunity. We heard the community feedback. There was a huge desire for change. The board listened and we did our job. To me, it's that simple. We have been very activist over the past year. I think it was necessary. Over the upcoming years, we'll trend back to a more traditional board and will allow the superintendent to run the schools, and as the ethics presentation said, we'll just ensure that the schools are well run. We also want to ensure that we have the best staff here in our policy capacity. We need to retain and attract the best teachers, the best administrators, the best everybody possible. I purposely put the retain first. I think we owe a debt of gratitude to all the people who have impacted this district, particularly the long-serving staff. We have so many who have been here for a long time and have made this place great. We want to retain a lot of those people, maybe that's not the right word. We owe them a debt of gratitude. We want to retain a lot of those people. It's critical to our future success. There's often a lot of criticism of our district, but I think what we do results in a quality education. We need to say that more. We need to say that proudly. We should be proud of what we accomplished, and at the same time, we should never rest on our laurels and say, we're great, it's good enough. We need to be constantly pushing forward and having a process whereby we continually improve. So the changes, once they're so embedded, it's hard once procedures have been embedded for decades, as we've seen in the past. So along with retaining staff, obviously when the opportunity arises, recruiting the best new staff possible is key to our future success as a district. The board is determined to put significant resources behind recruiting the best possible teachers, administrators, groundskeepers, everybody we can to make this district as best as possible. So to recap all that, access, grading, personnel, I think will be the three big focuses for me in the upcoming year. Lastly, I would certainly like to thank the parents, especially the ones that come to these board meetings, that watch these board meetings, that pay attention and give commentary. The board certainly takes its fair share of criticism. I think that makes us better. I think that allows us to amplify your voices and push throughout the administration. When there are hundreds of people saying the same things, our 9 voices became so powerful they can't be ignored. So I would encourage parents to continue to stay involved. Thank you. Superintendent's report, Dr. Dixon.
Do you want to do board committee reports? Oh, yeah.
I have superintendents.
Sorry, yeah,
I'm
you're
happy to
right.
do board
Sorry.
committee.
I was ahead of the game, sorry. Thank you, Mr. Heinrich, and I appreciate the confidence that you've instilled in both myself and Mr. Connolly. And I'll start by welcoming Mr. Connolly here today as his first technical official board meeting for the evening. And with that, I'm looking forward to joining him and collaborating and continuing the efforts that we've begun together. However, there is some unfortunate news that I mentioned last Thursday, but I'm going to mention it again as I feel that the audience is perhaps a little larger tonight. So I'd like to take pause in remembrance of Elena Navas Gottberg. It is with great sadness that Elena, who was in 6th grade at Millburn Middle School, passed away over the break. She attended Wyoming and Washington elementary schools, and she has 2 siblings currently attending these schools this year. It is with great sadness and with great empathy that our hearts go out to the families and friends who mourn her loss, and we certainly express our sincere condolences to the entire family and friends. In addition, Josephine or Josie Lomack, a paraprofessional at Millburn High School, passed away just before the holiday break. Ms. Lomack has been assisting Millburn students for over 20 years. Her focus recently was with our life skills students, but she impacted many others, and her support of their programs, field trips, lunch buddies, and more made these events possible. Her collegiality and helpfulness with her colleagues will be sorely missed. In addition, we've also learned of several other Millburn retirees who have passed in the last few weeks of 2024. Jean Jordan Howarth spent many years at Glenwood and Deerfield as a beloved ELL teacher until her retirement in 2020. Nick Navarino, principal at several Millburn schools, including Washington Elementary and the Millburn Junior High School, from which he retired in 1999 after a more than 40-year career in education. Nick was married to Patricia Navarino, supervisor of visual arts and dance for the Millburn schools, who retired in 2008. The family has graciously given a donation to the middle school in his honor. And also, we remember Ann Carnegie, who served as a dedicated elementary school nurse at Deerfield for many years. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And with that tonight, while I've already welcomed Mr. Connolly to the first full Board of Education meeting, on the agenda tonight, I'm excited to inform you that we will be requesting or recommending, I will be recommending Dr. Jill Sack for approval for the interim principal at the Millburn Middle School. Dr. Sack brings over 30 years of experience in education, having worked as both a classroom teacher and an administrator at the elementary and secondary school levels. She's retired from the Montclair Public Schools, where she was the principal of Buzz Aldrin Middle School, which was a STEM magnet school. Since retiring in 2021, Dr. Sack has held interim positions in Westfield and Princeton, and she is certainly an outstanding individual and educator with leadership skills to continue to guide Millburn Middle School through this transition period. This week, Dr. Sack will be in the district as part of her transition process on Tuesday and Wednesday, and Mr. Connolly will continue to support her over the coming weeks to ensure a smooth transition. Also, as part of the agenda, fire and security drills. The dates and items H1 represent the fire and security drills for all of our schools in December. January is Annual School Board Recognition Month in New Jersey. It is a time to raise public awareness of the roles and responsibilities of local boards of education, and to certainly thank our local school board members for their efforts and service on the Board of Education. I will say that the Millburn School Board of Education is only one part in creating an essential role in our students' lives. They oversee the New Jersey local school boards of education play an essential role, and they oversee 580 school districts, which in turn operate 2,500 public schools and provide educational services to nearly 1.4 million students. They set the policies for our schools and make the essential decisions affecting curriculum, finance, and staffing, as you heard tonight. In addition, on Thursday, January 9th, is National Law Enforcement Appreciation Day. It is a day created by multiple organizations to express gratitude for officers in the United States. I will be meeting with Chief Gilfeder on January 21st to review our agreement of understanding between the district and the township and to thank him and his department for their hard work and tireless contribution to maintaining law and order, along with their continued support of our district schools. I'm also grateful to our 9 security guards and Director of Security, Mike Pilardi. And finally, kindergarten registration for the 25-26 school year will be during the month of February 1st through the 28th. Parents with children 5 years or old on or before October 1st of this year will be eligible for entrance into kindergarten. We ask parents to register during this time frame so we can begin planning for the number of students entering next year. Please go to our registration page on the district website for more information about the online registration process. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Diskin. Now on to the board committee reports. First is student representative report. Mr. Ruddy?
Check, check.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and Happy New Year. I hope everyone had an enjoyable and restful winter break and is ready for an exciting start to 2025. As we return to school, students are diving back into their routines and preparing for the upcoming midterms occurring later this month. To kick it off with sports, the boys basketball team has had a strong week, securing 2 significant victories against Columbia and Newark Academy. These performances have brought the record up to 4-3. The girls ice hockey team continues to impress, picking up a strong 7-2 victory over Randolph, with senior goalkeeper Sydney Sparks stopping 12 shots. This brings the team record up to a 4-1 at the start of the season. In the pool, the boys swimming team improved to a 3-1 with back-to-back victories over West Essex and Newark Academy. Meanwhile, the girls swimming team secured an important victory over West Essex as well, bringing the record to an even 2-2. And finally, not to leave any of our teams out, our bowling, fencing, wrestling, and track and field teams are all off to strong starts as well. Finally, I also want to take this opportunity on behalf of the students at Millburn High School to thank last year's board and its leadership in helping bring about some student positive policies that have had some real positive effects at the high school. Some of those policies have helped facilitate deeper and more thorough learning of material before moving on to new content, and in many cases have reduced stress for students while not letting up on the rigor that we know prepares us so well for the next step of our education and our lives. I look forward to working with the new board and helping to continue to improve the high school, and I want to formally offer mine and Zach's help to use as resources to help you better understand the many positives at Millburn High School, and also give feedback on where we can take steps forward as a school to improve as a whole. Overall, the students are starting this year on a high note, getting back to their academics and preparing for the end of semester 1. I look forward to providing more updates as the winter season progresses. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ruddy. Any questions? As always, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you have other obligations, homework and such, you are more than welcome to depart. Second is negotiations. We'll largely be keeping the negotiations committee the same going into the next year until negotiations are complete. I was chairing that committee in the past. I'll probably pull the double duty until it's completed over the upcoming months. In terms of a general commentary, as the minutes are quite sparse, the negotiations continue to make progress and they're going well. We have 2 meetings to talk about. First, with the MEA on Tuesday, December 17th at 5:30 p.m. Board members present: Chris Heinrichs, Vishwa Reddy, Priya Shivani, Noel Bigman. Staff present: Cheryl Snyder. Board counsel: Mark Tabakin. MEA members present: Louis Infanger, Danielle Green, Christina Yurkowski, Chris Schlepp, Katie Mitchell, Bob Smith, Sandy Tekenor, Robin Finkelstein. NJEA: Louis Delgado. The meeting started approximately 5:45 p.m. The MEA and the board continue to discuss proposals. We have another meeting scheduled for January 15th. The meeting ended at approximately 9 p.m. Respectfully submitted, Chris Heinrichs. Second one with the MAA. Meeting on Monday, December 18th at 3 p.m. That was not a Monday. That was a Wednesday. Board members present, Chris Heinrichs, Vishwa Reddy, Priya Shivani. Staff present, Cheryl Snyder. Board counsel, Mark Tabakin. MAA members present, John Leahy, Scott Wolf, Kristen Moeller, Kelly Salazar. NJEA, Luis Delgado, Thomas Manos. Meeting started approximately 3:15 p.m. The MAA and the board continued to discuss proposals. The meeting ended at approximately 6 p.m. Respectively submitted, Chris Heinrichs. Any questions? Next, we have administrative reports. Mr. Conley, the Assistant Superintendent report.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone. I'm excited to be here tonight as Millburn's Assistant Superintendent. I look forward to working and collaborating with all of you, the board, Dr. Diskin, our teachers, our staff, our students, and our parents, and contributing to our district's shared goals. I'm confident that we will continue to build our successes and accomplishments, even with greater enthusiasm throughout the year. Winter concerts coming up. Our students have been working hard to prepare for their upcoming winter concerts, chorus, band, and orchestra. These concerts showcase and highlight their vocal and instrumental music talents and choreography. Parents, mark your calendars for the Millburn Middle School band concert on Wednesday at 7 p.m. The high school will have their band concert on January 9th at 7:30, and on the 15th, the middle school will have its orchestra concert at 7 p.m. Our elementary schools have concerts starting this week as well, with Hartshorn leading the way on Thursday, January 9th, Deerfield on Friday the 10th, and Wyoming on Tuesday the 14th, South Mountain Thursday the 16th, and Glenwood on February 6th. I would also like to congratulate 34 high school music students who got accepted into their respective all-new North Jersey music ensembles for band, chorus, and orchestra. Congratulations to those students. Deerfield Artist Residency. Deerfield School is excited to announce the beginning of a 6-day school-wide residency starting from January 15th with a mosaic artist from the Morris Arts. Students will create a large mosaic 20 by 6 by creating and glazing their own tiles. At the middle school, MMS Peer Leadership Program celebrates 30 years this year. Started originally in 1994, Ms. Michael and Mr. Pisa established the Millburn Middle School Peer Leader Program. A group of 20 members worked on a small community project and mentored sixth graders several times a year. This program evolved into one program that grew into a much larger program. During the 30 years of peer leadership, roughly 8,300 students have made a difference in our community. Through countless bake sales, car washes, and raffles, enough funds have been raised to grant at least 25 Make-A-Wish Foundation donations. Congratulations to the Peer Leadership Program. International Environmental Science Olympiad. Congratulations to Millburn Middle School student Vikrant Kawadkar, who participated in the inaugural Environmental Science Olympiad held in Puerto Rico over the winter break on December 27th through the 31st, 2024. The Olympiad had several events, including a buzzer-based bees, written exams, and fieldwork and task force programs. Vikrant was second place overall winner in the individual championship for the middle school division. He earned 5 medals across various events, 3 silver medals in Zoology B, Beach Ecology Fieldwork, and Rainforest Alliance Youth Ambassador Task Force. Congratulations to Vikrant. Pomptonian Recipe Challenge. It's that time of year. Pomptonian, our food service provider, is hosting its 6th annual Healthy School Lunch Challenge for National Nutrition Month in March. This exciting program encourages students to get creative in the kitchen by submitting healthy recipes. Students from pre-K to 12 are invited to and encouraged to participate by submitting a healthy recipe by February 24th, 2025. There will be a grand prize winner and a super grand prize winner in each of the categories, PK5 6 through 8 and 9 through 12 will be the divisions. The top 3 high school winners will compete along with the top chef at Disco Foods in Wayne, New Jersey on March 7th. For more information will be coming home in school newsletters and detailed on the website. Good luck to all of our top chefs out there. Respectfully submitted, John Connolly.
Thank you, Mr. Connolly. Any questions? Next up, Business Administrator Report. Ms. Schneider.
And I will say we have had past winners of that Pomptonian contest here in Millburn, so looking forward to seeing some interesting recipes coming out of our students. I have a very brief report this evening with just reminders about upcoming meetings. At the end of this month, on Monday evening, January 27th, is our regular board meeting, which we will have the initial budget presentation. Shortly after that, on Sunday, February 2nd, is our annual open forum for a conversation with Dr. Diskin and the board. Details about that will be available later this month. And that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. Next is the first public comment session. Please state your name and address for the record. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Responses to question and comments will be posted to the district website before the next board meeting or within 10 school days.
Check.
Good evening. Happy New Year. Jamie Ceruto, 77 Jefferson Avenue, Short Hills, and a former Board of Education member. I want to congratulate the new board leadership, new president and returning vice president. And I just want to say that I look forward to a great year for the entire community, and that I have high hopes for the Board of Education. I think this is a year of renewal in so many ways, shapes, and forms. The weather changes, right? We had snow out of nowhere. We've had a lot of changes in this community, and I just hope that for 2025 that both the public and the board and the administration, and whether that's here or it's across the street, across Millburn Ave, we just work as a united front for the best interest of all residents. We can all do good by being positive, by being engaging, by slowing down and listening. And that's listening to all sides. So I really hope that we have a wonderful year, and best of luck. And I'm always here, myself, other former board members, here for any counsel or any conversations. Want to make sure that dialogue's always open, and have a great rest of your year. God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Ceruto.
Hello, Ilya Lisansky, 42 Southern Slope Drive. Mr. Connolly, congratulations on your new role. I have kids in 9th and 7th grades, and I would like to make a comment and get the board's views on the subject of the midwinter break of 2026. I understand that back in October, the board decided to shorten the midwinter break to just 1 day, in addition to the President's Day. I am disappointed by this decision, and I would like to respectfully suggest that the board reconsider that decision in favor of a full week midwinter break. My family loves winter sports, and the February break is a special time of the year when we usually travel somewhere to ski, to spend time with each other, and take a break from the stresses of work and school. With the climate becoming warmer, there's no longer reliable snow in the Northeast or out west during the Christmas break. The MLK weekend, the new 4-day midwinter break, or the Lunar New Year Day off are just not long enough for distant travel if kids cannot miss school. So this change is very disheartening. I know many people here want to give the kids some time to unwind, to spend time with family, and doing away with a full week midwinter break moves us in the opposite direction. I understand that as the town becomes more diverse, we need more days to accommodate various religious and ethnic holidays, and that people don't want school to end in late June. Perhaps there are other ways to address these concerns. One possibility is to start school a week earlier in late August. Many families have to be back in town anyway because of high school sports, the tryouts. This would also align us better with many other districts and with a nationwide AP exam schedule. Another possibility, and I may be going out on a limb here, is to do away entirely with days off other than the national and state holidays. Instead, the town should have a list of days on which include Christian, Jewish, Chinese, Indian, and Muslim holidays, on which no school test should be scheduled. Teachers would also be asked to make sure there are materials for students to catch up on what they missed. This way, each student may miss a few days a year based on whatever traditions their family observes, but it's not too disruptive of school. Unfortunately, I was not aware of this decision as it happened in October. I believe the year before, there was a poll and more deliberations on the subject. I think we all want more wellness and normalcy for the kids and opportunities to spend quality family time with our kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Josh Ryder, Parkview Drive, South Mountain section. It's almost disturbing that I have to come back here again and request answers to the same questions I raised last time. You managed to put out a press release that didn't actually address any of the questions I had. Maybe I wasn't clear enough in my communication last time, so I'm going to try again. This board approved Millburn girls playing ice hockey on the Chatham High School team. This board approved the money and the concept. Many of you sitting up here voted for it. This board gave it to the high school administration and they failed. Your high school administration got lazy and slapped together a substandard option. The high school administration said, we'll just give the girls something. Doesn't really matter. Nobody's going to care. No one's going to question it. Nobody really cares about the girls anyway. Samantha is sitting right there in the front row. Look her in the eye, stare her in the face, and tell her that the programs are equal. The programs that you approved. Look her in the eye, stare her in the face, and tell Sammy it is equal to travel and drive up to 40 minutes each way to Bridgewater and Morristown for practices and home games versus the boys program she's always played on right here at Cody Arena. Look her in the eye, stare her in the face, and tell Sammy it is equal to have less overall games versus the boys program she's always played on. Look her in the eye, stare her in the face, and tell Sammy it is equal to be practicing at 5:45 in the morning, 30 minutes away, when the boys team practices in the afternoon, and at 6 o'clock at night right here at Cody and at the high school. Look her in the face, look her in the eye, stare at her, and tell her that it's equal to be forced to leave school and miss class a minimum of 5 more times than the boys program she's always played on. Look her in the eye, stare her in the face, and tell Sammy you don't value a boys hockey player's education more than a girl's. When you are preferentially scheduling the team she has always played on and not giving her the chance to play on that team. These inequities were all brought to the high school administration back in October. Your high school administration's answer was, it's inconvenient. Inconvenient. It's inconvenient to be a girl at Millburn High School? I think it's important for every parent of every girl in the high school to know that the high school administration sees being a girl in their school as inconvenient. I want every girl student who takes classes in Millburn High School to know that when they pass their administrator in the hallway and he's looking at them, he's thinking, it's inconvenient to be a girl in my high school. Does the high school administration look at all the female faculty and think it's inconvenient for them to be female teachers at Millburn High School? Just like their female students? Does the high school administration meet with the superintendent who is female and think it's inconvenient to be a female superintendent? Let me be clear. If you're going to put out a press release, answer the points I am raising. Tonight, I have not mentioned anything but the inequality. Address the inequality. You approve the unequal program. It's time to stop being cowardly and answer for your unequal program. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ryder.
I'm Samantha Ryder. I'm his daughter. I live in South Mountain section, 27 Parkview Drive. I didn't prepare a speech tonight. I didn't really think I was going to have to speak. I thought you guys would actually look me in the eye and listen, but no. It's not almost disturbing anymore. It is disturbing that it's 2025 now and I'm begging you to let me play on an ice hockey team. This isn't just something that I do after school and it fills my time. It's my life. It's my life. I've been playing this sport since I was 6 years old. It's my life. I've put countless hours and effort into this sport and for this school, and you're not letting me play? It's ridiculous. And trust me, this is not fun for me to come up and say things like this to a semicircle table of adults. It's not fun, and it's almost making me cry. I'm struggling to find out why it's easier to take a risk, or it's harder to take a risk that's only affecting one student. I'm the only person affected by it. You guys are looking at me. I'm the only person. No one else in the state of New Jersey is affected by this. I'm the only person. And you're telling me you can't help me? My dad mentioned all the inequality issues, and you guys said you're going to listen. It's all there. He laid it out. He's laid it out twice. It can't be ignored anymore, and I don't like being not told the right stuff because you guys have all the answers. I'm really struggling. This isn't something that's it's been going on for months now, and we've reached out and we've tried so many things, and we've tried for you to just tell me that I can play. It is up to you. It's not the it's not the state, it's you. I'm bad at public speaking, but I am Sammy the hockey player, if you let me. It's not anymore right now because you're not letting me be Sammy the hockey player. I'm telling you again that this is my life. This is the past 4 years of my life I've spent trying to prove myself to be on that team anyway. It's not easy being a girl on a hockey team, on a boys hockey team in the first place. I had to prove that I belong in that team. And, well, now that they made this rule and you guys are only thinking that we have to follow this rule even though there are ways around it, and all that hard work and effort is being thrown out. I worked so hard. And I feel like that doesn't get looked at enough. The amount of effort and the amount of dedication that I put into that team. To become captain, a girl on a boys team, that's not easy at all. And I had to do that. Not had to. I chose to do that. Now I don't even get the choice. The choice is up to you. And I really hope you consider my true emotions. I promise you I did not make a speech. This is coming from right here, right now. You have the choice to let me be on the team that I'm supposed to be on. Please, please make the right choice here. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ryder.
My name is Jeffrey Feld. I live in Alexander Lane, Short Hills, New Jersey. I just have a few comments and observations. I think as a former parent of students, that it's really the whole community that you really want the input from. It's not just parents, it's the whole community. You heard Jamie Ceruto, who spoke, say as a former board member, take the input from them. My kids were peer leaders. It was a great program. We're talking about the performing arts. My kids were performing arts. They weren't athletes. I raised the issue of maybe taping these, recording these presentations, and rebroadcasting it throughout the community to build up what we do, because the arts are very important in this community. We have a cable station channel that's been dark for years. I think it's time to bring it back to light and rebroadcast what we do, hockey games, so I can see her play hockey on the boys' team. Also, it was very interesting and informative ethics presentation. Please look at the first Code of Ethics Rule number 2, the welfare of the student. Consider that. That's one of your ethics duties. And I hope that this ethics presentation, the slide deck, is shared with the community because it affects not just here, but what happens at the Township Committee. And finally, I'd like to report that on tomorrow's Township Committee agenda is talking about the Affordable Housing Advisory Committee. Your BA will have a seat on that committee. So you will be represented for influence of future affordable housing and on pilots. And that's a positive that came from, I think, the public. And when it's not just in the school board, but there's been changes on the Township Committee in the township because people want change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Feld.
Hi, Ben Stoller, 422 Wyoming Avenue. I'd just like to welcome the new board members. I'm actually on the Township Committee. I'm actually the liaison with the BoE. Mr. Reddy, thank you for all you did last year. It was a pleasure working with you. I look forward to working with you, Chris, going forward. Ms. Diskin, welcome. And Mr. Conley, welcome. Just a quick story about Mr. Conley. I have a son. I have 4 kids, 3 daughters, and I feel the pain of your father as well. The youngest is in 7th grade right now. But my son was in the middle school when Mr. Conley first started as principal at the middle school, and he was actually paralyzed in a terrible accident. What Mr. Conley in that middle school did for my son 8 years ago, 7.5 years ago, was unbelievable. So we have a great guy here that's going to really add a lot to the administration. So we appreciate welcome and welcome to the other board members that are returning. It's a thankless job, but we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stoller. If there are no more comments, discussion is the next item on the agenda. We do not have anything scheduled for tonight. Moving on to board action items. Item 1, instructional agenda items. Are there any carve-outs? Can I have a motion to move instructional agenda items M1A and B in consent agenda format? Mr. Farashudin, Mr. Lawrence can second. All in favor? Can I have a motion to approve instructional agenda items M1A and B in consent agenda format? Mr. Reddy? Ms. Shivani can second. A, resolve to review superintendent's recommendations of the HIB investigations for the period of 12/12/24 to 12/20/24. Item B, resolve to approve professional development request. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Ms. Bethina?
Yes.
Mr. Bigman?
Yes.
Mr. Farashudin?
Yes.
Mr. Finkelstein?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Longley Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Ms. Shivani?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrichs?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Item 2, personal agenda items. Can I have a motion to approve the personnel report dated January 6th, 2025? Ms. Longley Richards, Ms. Bethina can second. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Bigman?
Yes.
Mr. Farashudin?
Yes.
Mr. Finkelstein?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Longley Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Ms. Shivani?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrichs?
Yes.
Ms. Bethina, sorry.
Yes.
Item 3, business agenda items. Can I have a motion to approve business agenda item M3A? Mr. Finkelstein, Mr. Lawrence can second. Item A, resolve to approve. The Board of Education acknowledges that each board member has received a copy of the Code of Ethics. Any comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Farashudin?
Yes.
Mr. Finkelstein?
Yes.
Mr. Lawrence?
Yes.
Ms. Longley Richards?
Yes.
Mr. Reddy?
Yes.
Ms. Bethina?
Yes.
Mr. Bigman?
Yes.
Ms. Shivani?
Yes.
Mr. Heinrichs?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Next item, old business. Any from the board members? Next item, new business. Any new comments? Next is the second session of public comments. Same rules apply. Please state your name and address for the record. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Seems like no more public comments. Next item, board member comments. Mr. Reddy.
Given that everyone is truly back, I want to take this opportunity to make some personal remarks to reflect on the last year and the work in front of the board for this year in my inimitable dark style, as Mr. Hendricks puts it. These remarks are mine, are only mine, and do not represent those of the board. To the community, we are a unique community with very high achieving parents, a lot of expectation that are heavily invested in their children. And we have a staff that is highly motivated. We have the best staff. But for many years, the community has been discussing grading equity and AP access. Over the years, there has been lack of leadership and accountability from the board on into other levels of the school district on these issues. That much has been clear from the data that was presented to the public last year. With your help, starting in November 2023, the board began to address these issues and set a new direction. The board outlined the goals for creating customized paths for each student with AP access, option 2, and revamping the grading system as priorities, and has largely delivered on pretty much all of them last year. The results last year are not a continuation from past years. The board last year, of course, had the benefit of the work done by the school district in the past, but from my vantage point, the board took an entirely different approach. In each instance, we took a very data-driven approach, inquired about the impediments for getting things done, and got things done. For example, for AP access, the program committee reviewed the AP potentials report from the college board that shows the number of students that are expected to succeed in each AP course based on their PSAT and SAT scores. The committee inquired about the impediments in reaching those numbers. For grading, the board looked at comparable data from the college board and also at the school district. We then looked at the solutions from other school districts. In both cases, the results was a set of rules Dr. Diskin and her staff were able to implement for for this school year. So why am I recapping all this? I want people to remember that this same set of board members delivered last year. As we look forward, that track record matters. Together as a community, we climbed this mountain. And obviously, we had a lot of help. I want to thank Dr. Diskin and his immediate staff, and also the rest of the administrative staff and the teachers for all the hard work in making these changes happen. There was a lot of work over the summer. It was a very dedicated effort from the school staff, and of course, the board was there to support that. We obviously have fantastic staff, and most of them are highly motivated. But the state we are in didn't happen in vacuum. And the results that were achieved last year were made through rule changes. Lasting change is not achieved with rule changes, but needs cultural change. Cultural change requires organizational change. And those changes will underpin other changes that the school district needs and plans. To my fellow board members, Dr. Diskin, Mr. Connolly, the organizational change will be a major task for all of us for this year. As we discuss organizational structural changes, let's ensure that the long-term structural integrity is not compromised for short-term expediency. This is going to be a difficult journey. That is why, in my opinion, what we achieved last year is more akin to a base camp for the peak that we need to scale of organizational change. We'll have heavy gusts, a lot of slippery slopes along the way that'll test our resolve. Organizational change will require taking the community and the staff along this new path. And that starts with two key elements, fortitude and great communication. Personally, I don't think we started well on this aspect last year, but I think we ended really well in terms of how we communicated. We communicated more comprehensively and clearly with the problem statement and the solution that we're providing to solve that problem. I think there's more of that needed this year. The board will also need fortitude. Not everyone will like the changes, and especially those that are most affected by it. Fear of change can manifest in a number of ways that will most definitely impact the board and the administration. We'll have to display fortitude when those headwinds try to push us off the path. It will be easy to slip up as we face real or perceived personal considerations, as many of us already have. I implore you and myself to remind ourselves of the sworn duty to serve the entire student body. Back to the community again. I know these are perilous times. Our faith in all manners of authority has been challenged severely in the recent years. But please remember that you elected us, and most importantly, we are your neighbors. The board certainly needs to communicate better, but I would request that you assume good intent on our part. These same people have delivered last year, and there's no reason to assume otherwise. If you have questions, please reach out to any of us as your neighbors to discuss. Most of you are familiar with the concept of managerial prerogative. You need to trust your management to make the right decisions. If you think we aren't delivering, you have the chance to correct it every November. Heck, you can even recall us. There is actually a provision to recall Board of Education members. You don't have to wait for the 3-year term to complete. But if you agree that we have diagnosed the problem properly, it then doesn't make sense to then doubt us on the solution. Please know that we are doing our best to balance multiple stakeholders. I sat in the chair last year that Chris is in. It's a very difficult place to be in. One has to balance several objectives, as the Code of Ethics has been laid out earlier. As the spokesperson for the board president bears the weight of that balance. Not always easy to respond if some group leader comes to the podium and alleges that they have not been consulted or have an imminent threat to a member of their group. An immediate rebuttal may be counterproductive, even if the facts support such a rebuttal. I have no doubt that Chris will do a better job than I did last year, but in this difficult journey ahead, what he needs and deserves is our trust. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. Any other board member comments? Next item is executive session. We do have a session scheduled for this evening to discuss both negotiations and personnel matters. Can I have a motion to go into executive session? Mr. Finkelstein, Ms. Shivani can second. All in favor? We are now in executive session. Thank you.